At this moment, former President Trump is addressing a crowd of supporters at his Doral Golf Club in Miami. It's his first public event since the day after the CNN debate 12 days ago. Apart from several phone interviews, he's often been playing golf at another of his clubs in New Jersey. This is what he said moments ago about Biden's candidacy.
You never talk about our victory was so absolute that Joe's own party now wants him to throw in the towel and surrender the presidency after a single 90-minute performance. They want Crooked Joe out of the race. It's a shame the way they're treating him.
Kristen Holmes is following the former president in Miami tonight. What more has he been saying so far about it?
Leave a tip for the next 4 months.
Well, Anderson, the most interesting thing he's been doing tonight is really going after Vice President Kamala Harris. Obviously is notable given what we are hearing about the calls for Joe Biden to step aside and the fact that his campaign, as we know, has been calculating what exactly that would mean for the rest of his campaign until November. What happens if Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket? Now, I want to read to you exactly what he said because he just said it moments ago, so we haven't been able to cut that sound yet. But he says, whatever else can be said about crooked Joe Biden, you have to give him credit for one brilliant decision. Picking Kamala Harris as his vice president was the greatest insurance policy of all time. If Joe had picked someone even halfway competent, they would have bounced him from his office years ago. The reason why this, again, is so notable is, one, Donald Trump and his team have really spent almost no time talking about Vice President Kamala Harris at all. So they are clearly monitoring this situation very carefully. Now, they have told me that they have spent millions of dollars in modeling and gathering data to go after President Joe Biden. They have not switched they have not flipped their switch yet to go after Kamala Harris to look into that data because they're waiting to see what exactly happens. Now, the other thing, tonight, one thing we didn't hear was any sort of announcement for vice president. Interestingly, he made a very brief comment about Marco Rubio, saying he believes that all of the media here is because they think that they're going to announce he's going to announce Marco Rubio as vice president, but then quickly moved on. Campaign had been teasing when he's going to announce, but we still are no closer to his actual announcement. Obviously, as we have reported, he has to make that decision by next Monday. They have said it could come as late as Monday morning, but Senator Marco Rubio, he was here. He spoke. His whole family was here. This is his hometown, yet only that brief reference to him in the crowd and then moved on.
Scarface, they call him in some territory.
Kristen Holmes, thanks very much. Perspective now from New York Times senior political correspondent Maggie Haberman and former Trump White House communications director Alyssa Farr Griffin. So, Maggie, do you think Donald Trump, does he want to run against Biden?
Yes, I do. I think that I think the idea of not having Biden in the race has been of concern to a number of Trump advisors. Whether they would say that or not, I think is openly is a different issue. I think that they know what a race against Joe Biden looks like, or think they do, and they felt obviously very good about what happened in the debate. A change in that would potentially impact their calculus for what the next 4 months look like. So the fact that President Biden is digging in and telling his critics in the Democratic Party that he's not going anywhere is something that the Trump team is delighting in.
Alyssa, do you think there will be another debate?
I'm skeptical. I do think it was a smart and expected tactic from Donald Trump to try to goad Biden into another debate. I don't think that there's anyone left, right, and center who thinks another debate would benefit Joe Biden. But I think that if it ends up being that come September, it's Trump versus Biden, I don't think that there's a reason that Donald Trump would show up, and especially with the commanding lead he has in the polls. Just to put this in perspective, this is the best week and a half Donald Trump has had since he was elected in 2016. The immunity ruling from the Supreme Court, the GOP lining up behind him ahead of the convention, and Joe Biden falling apart in the Democratic Party, frankly, in shambles with the latest polling that we've seen and questions over if he can stick this out. But what I do think is important is Donald Trump wants to run against Joe Biden. He sees that he will win. There's a chance he will sweep at a greater level than he previously has. They are nervous of another candidate, despite what he might convey. Even someone younger like Kamala Harris with vulnerabilities she has, that he would be fearful of a change in the candidacy.
Maggie, in terms of the search for vice president, the former president has claimed that he may not announce, it was expected he might announce sooner, that he may not, depending on what happens it may change depending on what happens with the Democrats. How much of that do you think is true? How much of it is him wanting to try to build suspense and perhaps do something at the convention that he thinks will be dramatic?
I mean, look, it's impossible to know with Donald Trump exactly where his mind is with something like this, Anderson. I often think back to what happened in 2016 when he had literally offered it to Mike Pence and then still was on the phone with Chris Christie saying, I haven't made up my mind, and then going on air on a cable show to say he hadn't made up his mind, even as Pence was preparing to come to New York for a press conference. So Trump will always leave these things up in the air until, the last possible second that he can. Will he wait until Monday? Maybe. He has a rally on Saturday, which would seem like a pretty likely place where he might do it. But I think we all learned a very long time ago it's a fool's errand to try to nail down what he is going to do before he does it, because he will then do the opposite just out of spite.
Yeah, I mean, Senator Rubio is appearing with the former president, as we heard. I mean, does that indicate anything to you?
I wouldn't make too much of it. The president's son, Don Jr., has been extremely critical of Rubio and has tried to frame sort of a conspiracy theory that he would try to plot to overthrow Trump when in office and take control. So there's major detractors for Rubio, but there are pros. Of course, if there's a change in the race and you're running against someone like a Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black woman running for president, having a Latino on the ticket might be an important factor. I think that it's said that it's decided by Trump, who he's going to be choosing. He's somebody, to Maggie's point, who may change his mind up into the last minute. And there are little fiefdoms around him who are pushing for different folks. I think Burgum is the favorite at this point, but you never know when it comes to Donald Trump.
Maggie, do you think Burgum is the favorite at this point?
I don't, but that doesn't mean he isn't. I mean, I don't know that Donald Trump has a favorite, right? I mean, I think that he has a bunch of options, none of whom are perfect. This is different than 2016 when this was all novel and when he needed Mike Pence to help him solidify evangelical support. Trump controls the party at this point. So what he needs is very different, and what he might want in a vice president is very different. I mean, Donald Trump is a chemistry player. I've said this to a number of people recently. He did have chemistry with Mike Pence. He has a lot of chemistry with J.D. Vance. I don't know about his levels of chemistry with Doug Burgum. They have a fairly recent relationship. His history with Marco Rubio has never been suggestive of great chemistry. But what exactly is going to be the deciding factor that Trump is making up his mind on? It's only he knows.
Maggie Haberman, Alyssa Farr Griffin, thank you.